What? I'll make it work. Okay. What's up? You tuned in to the Forest Kids podcast once again, and I'm here with a crazy guest I was not expecting to get, but here he is on my goddamn computer screen. We have Austin Archer, a musician, actor, TikTok star. What's up, dude? Thanks you so much for coming on.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I am.
Yeah?
I always say yes if people ask me to do their podcast. I don't think I've turned anyone down yet.
Well, shit.
Yeah, so
It's still super special and really cool because you were like the first dude I found on TikTok that I was like, oh, okay, this app isn't all shit, I guess, you know? Because it was just like, the main page filter stuff, like when you first get the app. And then
Sure.
like one of your stuff popped up and I was like, oh, this shit's tight. 'Cause I think it was Turtleneck and Blazer.
Oh, wow, yeah. Sometimes I feel like I feel like I've sort of fallen off a cliff creatively. Like I feel like that was like that time during the pandemic and when I was first kind of building up my TikTok page, it felt really creatively on fire, and it feels like, I don't know, now it's just become a job. And I think I still have videos from time to time that I'm like, that was good, I'm proud of that. But I feel like that time, like that Turtleneck and Blazer time when I was making a bunch of music videos, it was like, it was like all just to be funny too.
Yeah.
And now it's like, now I'm like talking about socio-political shit
my
that's going
God,
on because I
yes.
have to be responsible with my platform. And yeah.
Because I did do the task of scrolling all the way to the bottom of your TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, so this is just a quarantine thing that really took off. And putting two and two together that you are this like aspiring actor, and I feel like you're just like, oh, this is how I'll grow my platform even more on this new thing.
Or this is how I'll become trapped doing this for the rest of my life.
I guess that was a small bubble and it came to fruition.
No, I had no idea that that's what would happen. But that anyway, we're 3 years deep, and but it's only 3 years, and like 3 years of a full life is not that long. But
Yeah.
I actually been making videos and making internet content since 2015. But I was just doing them. I was doing that on Instagram and on Snapchat and a little bit on YouTube, and just like for nobody, like nobody was watching, and I was doing it with like very crudely. No editing skills whatsoever, and it was just like kind of like germs of ideas for videos, and mostly like my friends and family were watching, and then it didn't really pop off until 2020,
Yeah.
So.
And well then let's go there for a second of like, I always like to kind of know like the origin story of musicians or whoever I'm talking to. Like, what was that like moment for you that was like, oh shit, I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna go do that the next time I can see there's a school thing going on, or I'll ask my mom for a guitar for Christmas. Like, what was the song or thing that just, you know what I'm talking about? That oh shit moment.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had one of those that was really clear, because I talk to people all the time growing up. Whenever I would do shows, whenever I would do like a play or a musical, people always ask that question. Actors ask each other that question all the time. Like, how'd you get into acting? How'd you get into theater? How'd you get into, music and stuff like that? And everyone's always got like a really fun story of like seeing some play and being like, I want to do that. I want to get on stage and do that. But I was so young, I don't remember it. Like my mom tells the story that like we were at a play somewhere, or watching someone perform. Maybe my older siblings were performing. They were singing and dancing in some like performance. And I was like, I want to do that. So she like got me in stuff when I was like 4, because I said I want to do that. And I never wanted to not do it. And so I remember as like a kid really, really wanting to be an artist, and like I was obsessed with like Van Gogh and Monet, and and I wanted to be like a painter, and then that didn't really pan out. But I just
kid, what do you mean? Do you mean like
as like a young child, as like a 5, 6, 7, 8 year old?
Okay,
I was like obsessed.
First grade.
Yeah, I was like really into like old impressionistic painters. And
What a first grader! Like, what? That's interesting. As fuck.
and we've got like photos of me as like a little kid where I'm like asleep in my paints, because I would paint all day and I would draw all day, and I really I never was as good of a visual artist as I wanted to be. Like I never had the discipline to actually sit down and like learn the technical mastery of it, and I've never been good at that in any of the forms that I operate in. Like I'm a musician and I've never had the discipline to just like sit down and learn music theory and like memorize my circle of fifths and learn how things work in a, like I can't do it that way. The only way that I can do any of this stuff is off of like feel. It always is just like off of vibes and feel. But I mean,
it sounds like your family was just so accepting of that type of things, and it was already going on in your family.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm the that's what my kids do, whatever they want.
I'm the youngest child, and I definitely got the parents who had already done 3 other kids, and they just were like, let's just let this kid do whatever he wants, and they just they did just let me. That I was very spoiled. I had 3 older siblings, and none of them had their own. We had these big bay drawers in our kitchen in the house growing up that were like intended for like where you put like big like serving bowls and like big like huge round like punch bowls and stuff, like a big drawer where you put like all of your punch bowls and things like that. Okay. Like big mixing bowls and things like that. And one of those was full of mixing bowls and kitchen accoutrement and like blenders and things like that. And then another one of those, a big huge like bay massive drawer, was full of my art supplies, and that was my drawer, and it wasn't for any of the siblings, and no one else in the house had their own drawer, but I got my own drawer, and it was full of charcoal and paint and colored pencils and crayons and all these different sketchbooks full of my drawings and paintings and things like that. And it's just, I mean, it's silly. And I started acting in TV and film when I was like 9 or 10, and I started making money at it. And
like,
so anytime
how did that come about?
That was the same thing. I found an agency through I took an acting class that was talking about like getting commercial and TV agents. And so I found this agency through that acting class, and I sent them a letter. And I told my mom, I was like, hey, I sent a letter to these people and they might be contacting us. And they reached out to us and they were like, yeah, we want to meet your son. And I was like 10 years old. And so we went and met them, and started doing TV and film. And then anytime I wanted something, I wanted my own camera so I could start making videos with my friends and things like that, and learning how to edit and things like that. And my dad was like, you have money for that. So like my parents started being like, you can do whatever you want, but like we're going to have you fund some of it.
Yeah.
So I think I bought a camera that was like $1,200, and I paid for like $800 of it, as a kid.
That's really interesting that the acting came first, because like you seem like, I feel like everyone starts off as a musician, but besides the point, acting is so like outside the realm of my knowledge at all. Like it's so like foreign to me. So that's so interesting that like, oh, you take a class and you send a letter, you could be on a commercial. Like that's insane. Like when I
was doing plays before that, my siblings and I grew up in this singing and dancing group called Singers Unlimited. That was so I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. And so it was this like singing and dancing group in Utah where they would take kids in age groups, and they would, you'd learn like a routine of songs, and it would be like pop songs or musical theater songs or like songs from old Hollywood, and you would like learn these songs and you would learn dances to them. And it was basically just like teaching kids how to sing and dance in a very, very like rudimentary way. And my siblings all like kind of resented it and didn't like that they had to do it. I think my older sister liked doing it. But I really loved it. And I always really loved performing, and it taught me how to hear harmony and how to sing at a young age and stuff. Yeah. So I did start off early with music, but I didn't start writing songs until I was like 15, and that wasn't a thing I even thought I could do. But around 12 or 13, I started teaching myself how to play instruments, and that's why like I've never had the patience or the brain for like sitting down and learning a thing the way it's supposed to be learned. So I would just, but weirdly enough, I did have the patience to like sit down and listen to a song on repeat and learn how to play the song by learning one note at a time, like listening to the chord structure of the song and being like, okay, that note's in there, that note's in there, that note's in there. Okay, that's the first chord of the song. All right, now that note's in there, that note's in there, that note's in there, that's the second chord of the song.
Wow.
And like, then learning how to like, slowly learning how to play the piano in a rough way. And then I had a friend who taught me a couple songs on the guitar. So I asked for a guitar for Christmas when I was like 16 or 17, so I could keep fooling around with the chords that he taught me on how to play that song. And pretty much every instrument that I play now is something that I
just
sort of picked up on my own. And I think I would be a much better musician and instrumentalist had I learned in a classical way or a traditional way. But
here's my shtick on that.
Yeah.
So I have a whole thing on that actually, because I've learned both ways a little bit, in the sense of, I would say, only a little bit was professionally, like, here's like what you do. Here's how to learn drums. Like, drums was my first instrument.
Yeah.
And I had like a drum teacher. I had several drum teachers, and then like I got really good at like marching drums and like getting exact shit down and like being all marching like that. And then I even tried to do like piano lessons and whatnot, but like I just felt so like more focused on like learning these things than like expanding what I could do with music. And
sure, yeah,
I started like writing weird electronic music in like 2010, which was like the time I just started like picking up all these other instruments, because I felt like there was no rules anymore. I was just like, well, I can just learn what the guitar is. Like, you go like this and that, and then like through just like figuring
you find shapes that sound good.
Exactly. You just find it on your own, and it feel like you learning it on your own in like your own way is like the most unique way you could be playing that instrument, and then like creating something later down the line. Because I feel like I don't learn a lot of songs, like I don't cover a lot of songs, because I feel like then I'm just riffing off those whenever I try to write something new. It comes super more organic when I'm just like, you know what I mean? Just like having nothing in my head.
Absolutely. There are certain things that like there's certain just like techniques that you're just not going to have like a foundation of if you don't have any kind of traditional educational base. Like,
well, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Where it's just like, I'm not going to be able to solo.
I mean, like, yeah, I'll never be able to do sweeps, but like,
yeah, like a proper lead guitarist where it's like they like have a foundation of like classical guitar. They learned on a nylon string, like and they learned all these different hand shapes.
Bro, that's what open tunings are for.
Yeah, it's just so I can just totally.
That's what twinkling's all about.
I even feel like the solos that I do on my songs and on my records, because I play all the instruments on all my records, and I feel like the solos come out sounding a way that only I could play a guitar solo, and that's not necessarily like bad or good. It's definitely not like a professional lead guitarist would listen to me soloing on one of the songs and be like, I wouldn't hire you to be the lead guitar player in a house band, and like, absolutely. But I talk about this all the time, that like I will take a memorable and unique and simple guitar line over a crazy complex Led Zeppelin lead guitar solo.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, if you could, would you even do that though? Like, I feel like that wouldn't even fit the vibe, because it's more so like this. You think, like, if we were talking about like Beautiful Things, for instance, this is just like the pinnacle of all things Austin. Because like, I want to talk about Us Thieves for a sec.
Sure, yeah.
Like, cause was that like your first band project thing?
Yeah, I had bands in high school and stuff like that, and I had like little projects in college and stuff, but Us Thieves. So the person who really made me think that songwriting was like possible in a real way, because like, how like teenage boys and teenagers in general write songs. In general, they're not very great, and like there's like kids in high school that know how to play the guitar and that maybe have written a few songs, and like at parties they pull out the guitar and they play their one song that they've written down, and everyone's like, play that song, and it's like not very
Holy
great.
shit.
And
Everyone
I went
has
to high
the
school,
same experiences.
yeah, and I went to high school with a bunch of those kids, and I even wrote a handful of songs in high school that I thought were pretty bad. And
Bro, look at this
and
hair. You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah. But my friend in high school, whose name was Chris Bjorn, and he's actually a very prolific songwriter. He's got a lot of music on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff. But Chris Bjorn, Bjornn is how you spell his last name. In high school, as like a 16 and 17-year-old, he was like a little Connor Oberst, like writing like genuinely good songs. Like honestly, like some of my favorite songs he's ever written were written when he was like 17, which like I feel bad. He's 36 now. And like I feel bad being like, I don't know, that song that you wrote when you were 17 is still, but like I could see someone my age from the same place that I was from the same background that I was from, writing like mature, cool, well thought out lyrics and he was also a self-taught guitarist, and he's one of the best self-taught guitarist I've ever met, and he would play guitar in such a unique way, and his movement around the neck on the guitar and his like chord structures for his songs and the rhythm of his pick patterns was so unique, and I like no one else played like that. And it still holds up. Like if I go back and listen to those songs now as a 35-year-old guy, and I go back and listen to Chris Bjorn in high school, like those songs, I'm like, no, they're still good. And he was the person that made me think like, okay, no, I actually maybe could do this. So when I was in college, I learned a bunch of Chris Bjorn songs, and I learned like harmonies to them. And he went on an LDS mission because we were all Mormon kids from Utah, and I didn't go on a mission, but he went on a mission. And when he got back from his mission, I was like, hey, if you're ever playing shows live, I know all the words to all of your songs now, and I've got really cool harmonies to your songs. And so he was like, well, come over and let's like record some harmonies on some of these songs. So we were singing together, and we liked the blend of our voices together, and we started writing like he would write like most of a song, and I would add like a couple lyrics and harmonies, and I would do like a shaker and like harmonica, and then that became Us Thieves, and we became songwriting partners for like 10 years together. And like he really helped me grow into the songwriter that I am today. Like I really owe him a lot as far as like my growth as a musician. And we basically started writing songs like 50-50 right down the middle. We would just have these sessions in our early 20s where we would just spend hours writing song after song after song. And Us Thieves, we were playing shows every weekend in Salt Lake, and we were a really fun act because it was just two of us, and we had this really nice vocal blend, and and we were kind of like we were friends with a lot of punk bands, and we were living in a punk house together where like a lot of punk bands were playing. So there's like sort of like this weird like grungy punk thing going on underneath Us Thieves, because Us Thieves is very like wholesome and folk rock.
It is.
But there's
it was not what I was expecting when I pressed play. I was like,
there's
okay.
there's a griminess though. There's like
it's very all-time quarterback type vibe.
Yeah.
Very like cassette, like homemade warmth. But and this kind of perfectly leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about. Fucking goddamn, When I Was Cool. What a fucking song, dude.
Oh,
like,
thanks, man.
What like I can't tell you how much that like hit first time I heard that, and how pissed off that don't even have 9,000 likes on TikTok. Like that's like in fucking incredible song. And
I really appreciate that, Thank
dude,
you.
It just like it feels like it just is so resonant to like me and like so many of my friends and peers who like are like living in like the punk houses in Philly, and like all like what life was like 5 years ago or so. And just goddamn, dude. And so would you say that Us Thieves is pretty much like that song then? Like that time? When I Was Cool is about that time, is about like being in Us Thieves and living in a punk house. All my friends were musicians, and we lived in this house in Salt Lake that was like a venue, and touring bands were coming through every weekend and playing shows at our house in our living room, and like big shows. Like we'd have like 100 people in our living room with like a punk band playing, and people were like moshing in the living room, like throw like holes in the wall, like just
cigarette ash all over the carpet.
And is that
like
a normal for Utah?
Utah does have like a pretty cool like countercultural scene,
Like a DIY scene?
Yeah, like and Salt Lake has such a like countercultural response to the prevailing LDS power structure. Like the Mormon Church runs everything, and then like you have these liberal metropolitan areas like Salt Lake City and Ogden, and even Provo to a certain extent, where there's like this really like underground like pushback against that, and it births a lot of like radical art that's pretty fun and pretty cool. And we had some wild shit go down. Like we had one weekend at our house, the band Clipping played at our house, and I had no idea who they were. This is a hip hop group from Oakland that the lead singer of this group is David Diggs, who's like a Tony Award winning actor now. I think he's an Emmy Award winning actor now.
Clipping.
Yeah, and David Diggs he wrote and directed and starred in the movie what's it called? Blind Spotting. Blind Spotting is a great movie, and before he was anyone, before he was famous, he was the lead singer of this hip hop group called Clipping, and they played in our living room. And when he was winning a Tony Award for Best Supporting Actor for being in Hamilton, my roommate from back in the day texted me and was like, "Hey, that guy that played a show in our house that one night is winning a Tony Award right now." And I was watching the Tonys, and I was like, because I'm a theater nerd, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Yeah, that guy that just won for Hamilton, he played at our house." And I was like, "No, he didn't." And he was like, and he sends me the YouTube video of them playing, because someone like took like a cell phone video of them playing in our living room, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Because I remember that show. I just didn't. At the time, he wasn't famous, so I didn't like register it as like, I got to remember when David Diggs played in my living room. He was just some guy, and the show was incredible. It was like the best act we'd ever had in our living room. This amazing like hip hop group where like the MC which was David Diggs, was like insane. Like he's such a good rapper, and we were just like, how is this act playing at our house right now? And now he's this huge famous guy, but.
Well,
yeah, it was a wild time. Yeah.
Fuck. So like, how long were you guys doing this like punk house basically? Like 2 years, few years?
So I lived there for 4 years, and then we called it the barn, and then they moved the barn to another place that was bigger, and they called that the Barn Deluxe, and that was a venue for another like 8 years after I left, 8 or 9 years, and I would go back and play house shows there, and play. They kept doing shows there, and they had a garage there where they could do bigger shows. So the garage was separate from the house, and it had a big long driveway attached to it, so they could put out chairs outside of the garage, and 200 people could show up to the garage and watch a really cool show going on in the garage.
And cops wouldn't come for that shit? Oh, it would be like an acoustic show or something?
No, house shows are all over the place in Salt Lake City, and
that's insane.
And us thieves, we would play at a handful of venues around Salt Lake and Ogden and Provo, but we played a lot of house shows. I love
hearing about different venues like that.
Yeah,
different, hubs,
bike houses and collectives and things like that, and a lot of bands, punk bands with no money, are unplugged anyway, and they're playing things like making drums out of a suitcase and a kick pedal, and like and shit like that, and finding whatever they can find. And
yeah, you fit right in Philly.
Oh yeah. I think it's one of those things where there's that counterculture scene in music in a lot of towns. I almost feel like that's something that places like New York and LA don't really get a good dose of, because there's so many people who are trying to do it legit. So
New York, I would say in like Brooklyn, like now, for sure.
Yeah. For sure, but it's still got that element. It's got that thing that's underwriting it, where everyone's like, we're hoping to get found. We're hoping to get spotted out here.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to these smaller towns and everyone's just like, no, we're just out here. We're just out here doing this. You know?
That's so goddamn true.
And that's kind of it's kind of a cool thing.
I do want to talk about like your genre choice for a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you always growing up around bands that were like, well, you said you started as thieves because you saw someone doing that and you're like, hey, let's do it together, basically.
Yeah.
Like, and then like I can like put it together that like Beautiful Things is just like this fucking pinnacle of like exactly what you want to do, kind of, right? Am I right? Because
Absolutely.
it's so well done. It feels like it's a in a good way an interpretation of all like the influences. I can kind of like, oh, like I could kind of see that, and just like boom, in this super cohesive record. But at the same time, listening to all these little doop dops from TikTok and shit that that are like so completely other field.
They're all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, all like from like trap beats and shit to whatever, and or like even like a '80s like turtleneck and blazer shit. Like, do you think you'll ever do something like that seriously?
It's a good question. I was saying that on a lot because I just released another TikTok album. So I have these 4 TikTok albums that are all just exclusively on my Bandcamp, and they're just of my silly TikTok songs. It's like the album version of Inside by Bo Burnham. Like it's like, you know, it's the audio version of these like goofy parody songs that I've released on the internet, but there's 4 of them, and they're all called, now that's what I call a bunch of Austin Archer's TikTok songs compiled into an album, volumes 1 through 4. And volume 4 just came out, and I was doing a live stream about that, and we were listening through some of the hits from volumes 1 through 3, and I was like, I know these songs are all like goofy, but like the production on some of these songs, like I really dig.
That's what
and
I'm
the reason
saying.
why I kept making them is because like I felt like I found something there, and then I took that production style and I used it on a single that went on the deluxe edition of Beautiful Things, the song Whatever You Can Do. And I was like, I just sort of as an experiment was like, let me see if I can like take one of my real songs, my serious songs, and sort of use that like synth rock, synth wave influence sound. And I did it on a few songs on the deluxe edition. I did it on the song New Content, and on the song Whatever You Can Do, and on the song In a Moment. And I sort of used like mostly electronic instruments and most, you know, and I don't know, I liked it. I could definitely see doing an entire album like that. What's weird is I'm actually writing an album right now that's a total return to my roots. I just was like, I think I want to actually strip it back and get back to like sad boy acoustic guitar.
Wow.
And I'm looking for a producer right now. I'm talking to a few people who like just do like really solid like acoustic albums where it's like, let's just find like some cello and just like, what's the bare minimum things that we need to find to make this or that song work? You know, some drums, maybe some simple lead guitar here and there, nothing too major, maybe a piano line here and there, little, you know, and that's what I started writing at the beginning of 2022, and it's been slow going. But I also like, I think you can hear from Beautiful Things that like I have a hard time sticking to one sound or one genre or one space, and that's not really, it's not necessarily intentional, but it's also like not intentional. Like it's just the songs come out how they come out, and they're I think I'm at my best as a songwriter when I'm just allowing what's happening to happen the way that it is coming to me, the way that it's sounding in my head. And if I ever try to like emulate something that I've done before that I know people liked, like I've had a lot of people be like, how come you don't sing the way that you sing on The Comeback in more songs? Like that's such a like cool range for your voice.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
was
like
about
such
to
like
say
this,
that's a fucking track. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, and people are like, how come you only do that on like that one song? And I'm like, well, I sing loud on other songs, but there's a vocal quality on that song that doesn't really appear in a lot of my other tracks. And like one reason is like, it's fucking hard. And the other reason is like, that song came out the way that it came out. I wrote the song Beautiful Things, and I wrote that song right after. So I wrote the song Beautiful Things and I finished it. And in my head right there, I was like, if that was the first track on an album, the second track on an album would be really cool if it came from this really sincere, simple, soft place. And then it was just like this huge, heavy hitting rock anthem that's in the same key. So I stayed in the same key and I went over to like this E chord and just started like hitting it really hard. And like, before I knew it, The Comeback was done right on the back of Beautiful Things. And Beautiful Things was a song that flowed out in like a simple like afternoon. And then The Comeback came right after it. And I was like, okay, that's 1, 2. Those are tracks 1 and 2 on the new album. And that's how the album started. But it was like just the idea of going from really soft to really big, which is something I do. I think it's because I'm a theater person and I'm a filmmaker and a storyteller. I like the album to be an experience and a journey, and like I don't want the listener to be able to guess what the next song is going to sound like, you know? Like I don't want them to be able to be like, yeah, after I hear tracks 1 through 3, I basically know what I'm hearing. Like I basically get what, you know, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's like a Tame Impala record. Like I know what I'm getting tracks 1 through 10 and I'm still there for it because I think Kevin Parker's just great. But like,
it's all what you want to do.
He's not like shocking me with like an acoustic
Well, he's
guitar.
not trying to.
No,
he's trying to sell records, you know?
Right, yeah.
He's trying to get on the fucking radio. Like, he's
Yeah.
not trying to express himself in this fantastic masterpiece. He's, like, already done it. I feel like if you go back and, like, Mind Mischief or whatever the fuck, you're like, all right.
Sure.
But, like, now. But I totally agree with that. Like, it's all, like, what you want to make of it. But, like, you really got to kind of be cohesive but surprising at the same time. Like, I like to listen to a record and like kind of at any point can recognize, oh, it's from this record because it's kind of like in that they're doing that thing. Like,
yeah, when you're a big fan of a band and you know their discography and you can like hear the era, you're like, oh no, I know this era of Death Cab for Cutie. I
was about to fucking say. Not to mention because like I did message you like a while ago just on a fucking whim, like driving at like a red light and like new Death Cab was on the radio and I'm like, this shit sounds like Austin. I was like, psh. And like I just thought that was so funny because they've been like Death Cab is so funny because it's like, oh, first off it's like, do I like the song? Okay, then it's early. It's like, oh, I don't like the song, it must be new. Like it's just I don't know, I'm just not a fan of their new stuff. It's really hard. Their new stuff's okay. What do you think? I always talk about.
I like some. I like that record. Thank You for Today. I have that on vinyl and I like it a lot.
Oh man,
but you don't like that record. That's
record
the one you don't like.
Felt like a personal attack when I heard it. I was like, guys, Ben, you could have made this a Postal Service too. Like, dude. And I'm like, this is why Chris Walla left. This is exactly why.
But that thing, like wanting my favorite artist or favorite band to like do more of the sound that I like from them, to me, it has always, as for me as an artist, I'm like, I can't give that to anyone and I can't give it to myself. So I can't expect it from anyone else. It's like my favorite band is The Killers. And as much as when you're signed to a record label and your career is selling records and stuff, like The Killers know who they are as their identity, and Brandon Flowers knows as a songwriter what his audience wants to hear. And their label knows.
1 second. Yeah. I forgot I have a shitty version of Zoom. So can I like call you back like right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's make it a break and we'll get back on.
Yeah, we'll start at The Killers.
Okay.
Smile Like You Mean It is an undeniable classic.
Well, I mean, Hot Fuss. I think Hot Fuss is one of the best debut indie rock records of all time. I really do. I like it's such
agree.
a strong debut record. And then Sam's Town as a sophomore record for that group is equally just so impressive. It's like two back-to-back records.
I have to dive more into that one. I haven't gone too crazy in Sam's Town.
So as like a big fan of the band, they definitely have like an identity, and they have a way. There's a lot of like soaring synth sounds that go over really really iconic guitar lines that are really like simple but anthemic, and then Ronnie Vanucci's just kind of boom boom boom, like feel it in your chest drums on every song, with Brandon's really really unique special vocals. Like it's like his vocal is like he's I think one of the best rock singers of the 21st century, and like
he's got a super crazy voice. Like after trying to cover Mr. Brightside, not Mr. Brightside, When You Were Young in like the slowed 80s version, like it, A, in a pitch I could fucking sing, B, just doing the bridge of "Let's Say the Devil's Water," like that's such a weird interval. like you don't think about it, and like you singing in the car, like you're just probably not doing it exactly as like the normal person singing along to the song. Holy fuck, like that made me really appreciate him as a vocalist even more, because I think I like watched that music video clip just to like get that melody line like a million fucking times, and I was just like, he knows what he's doing, this guy.
Well, I'll say this for Ben Gibbard. I'll say this for, because people, like, somebody asked me, I think my dad asked me a few months ago. He was like, "What do you think about Taylor Swift?" And I was like, "Hey, there are certain records that I think are really great. I think 1989 is like a really fantastic record. I think that's like maybe my favorite record by her. But like, it's not all for me, and I think that sometimes the songwriting style gets a little repetitive for me. Like, it's just a little too formulaic, and it's not necessarily meant for me. But anyone who can stay on top of the music game for 20 plus years and still be relevant and still be popping out hits has my respect. Like, it's
For
so
sure.
hard to stay relevant in music. Most bands, most songwriters, if they're lucky, get like 2 or 3 years of relevancy where they're like charting and they're
Yeah.
showing up at award shows and like people actually give a shit about them.
It's even
and
quicker today.
Yeah, and so I'm like, she has my respect as a person who has found multiple times in her career, has reinvented herself, multiple times in her career has taken creative risks, and she's constantly collaborating with different producers and trying to find
sure.
ways to present herself in a new way to her audience. And I think she's another great example. Her and like the Killers and Death Cab for Cutie, it's like they know who they are at the core, and they also know that being who they are and writing songs the way that they write, they can't escape. But I also like can't fault them for being like, on this record, we want to try this kind of sound. And we know that some of our fans might not dig it. They might be like, I miss the sound from this record. I feel like this, and that's the problem is like the sound on Hot Fuss to Sam's Town is different. It's notably different. There is a tonal shift, yet it's still the Killers. And some people might prefer, they might feel like the Hot Fuss sound is the perfect sound. That's the perfect Killer sound, and they've never recaptured it since. I'm such a fan of the songwriting style that I'm always happy to hear it in these slightly different shades. And I also just know myself as a songwriter. I'm like, I can't try to, if your favorite record of mine is Corey Feldman and you're like, I just like the DIY in your room rough and tumble texture of it, and if you could recapture that texture, I'm like, I can't. I recorded a lot of that album on a iPad that I don't have anymore. Like I can't, and it was like at a time and informed by a certain headspace. Like I was very depressed and alcoholic when I wrote that record, and like,
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna become an alcoholic again to write.
Yeah,
a
like
record.
I just can't do it for you. So like, and I can't do it for myself, and I can't force it. All I can really do as an artist is continue to move forward. And so if Ben Gibbard and Death Cab come out with a record that you're like, man, I wish that you would have stuck with this, or it's like, yeah, but like they're gonna write the record they're gonna write, you know?
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
For sure, but like, yeah, it wasn't like I'm done with you forever. It was just like, okay, guys, I'll see you in 5 years when you pump out the next one, and it was just like. It was just kind of that feeling, because I think they're probably one of my top bands because they haven't like faltered. Like if you click any other fucking podcast episode of this, you'll hear me talking about Blink-182 self-titled. And I think that is one of the most greatest pop punk records. You could even say like pop rock records of the past like 20 fucking years. You're
going to give it to self-titled over Enema of the State?
Let me tell you my little spiel, motherfucker, on self-titled. First off, they have the guy that made them want to start the band feature on the record. Robert Smith is at the end of the record. The beginning starts off with the best single, I feel like. Feeling This Is So Crazy, with this amazing chorus and like the vocals ending. That just was like a flare of like, hey, this record's going to be experimental. And then boom, second track, they're in like drop C, playing this heavy ass down, 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 down. Go into I Miss You, where they're playing fretless bass and like piano and all this. Like that album is so interesting. Every song, you're like, this is Blink-182. like just on how they're playing the guitars, but like it's the most mind-blowing Blink 182 at the time and even today, because they're fucking garbage now.
Yeah.
Garbage. Like they have no sympathy for
that is a band where I'm like, yeah.
I love Angels and Airwaves, but like Blink,
well,
no.
I feel so bad for all the pop punk bands because it's just not a form that continued to work. Like,
oh yeah, you can't do that shit today.
Death Cab and the Killers benefited from the fact that it's like your sound that you found in the 2000s with a few tweaks still works today. Like you have to you have to make some tweaks and modifications and stuff, and you would want to anyway because you're 20 years older than you were now, you know. And
yeah, and honestly, I'm not as mad as Thank You for Today as when I was when it came out, because I'm like, all right.
But like pop punk just didn't really survive. Like it just, so like when people who were popular with pop punk in like 2002 or 2003 come out with a new record and they try to still do that and they're like in their 40s, it's like it's such a young man sound too. It's like, no, you gotta be like 23 to sing that song on stage. Like,
that's why I can listen to AVA now, Angels and Airwaves, because they sing about like space and time and like some political stuff, and I'm like, word, you're not like talking about high school in this fucking band, man.
Right,
like
right.
And I'm like, all right, this is doable, but like, oh man, it's just cringe anymore. So that's kind of like where I'm at with that. There's some bands where I'm like, Death Cab was good enough and mind-blowing enough and inspiring enough for me to be like, all right, you can do an electronic album. That's okay, boys. But like, and their new stuff, they're kind of coming back anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, I found stuff on all their records that I like. Like, there's things on Kintsugi that I really like, and
same.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
I mean, like, it did like go down in interest as like they've progressed, but you know, I'm just kind of, like you said, like accepting that like they will never be what they were, but it's not that bad, you know?
Do you ever find yourself just getting like insanely overwhelmed by music? Because like I talk about this all. I'm an aspiring filmmaker, and that's part of what I do on the internet is like just trying to like hone my skills as like a filmmaker. I direct a lot of music videos and things like that just so I can get experience on sets as a director, but making films, actually making feature-length films, is so prohibitively expensive, so much more than almost any other form. Maybe the only other one that's like close to as prohibitively expensive as like literature, weirdly enough, is like trying to get a book published, and not just self-publishing through Amazon, but like actually getting a book like in Barnes and Noble, and like it's hard. There's a lot of barriers to entry, but still making a film is like, making a cheap film is incredibly expensive. And because of that, like, not everyone gets to do it, but the tools to make pretty good music are pretty available now. People, any musician out there who's an aspiring singer-songwriter who wants to like record some demos of songs that they've made can go to, if you can get together. And you can even do this. I had to build it up over years and years and years, but like
insane.
Over the course of a few years, if you can like build up an arsenal of like $2,500 worth of gear from Guitar Center,
dog, that's all you need. I've
been
saying this every fucking
you
day.
can cut an album.
Any of these motherfuckers on Twitter be like, I'm a producer. It's like, yeah, because you went down to the producer store and bought yourself a producer set. Like, that's fine. Go do what you want to do. But it's just fucking crazy that you can do that nowadays.
But it just means that like a lot of times. So I still like listening to albums because I'm older, and I know that that's not a thing that Gen Z's really doing anymore, and I know that that's not a thing that a lot of new artists are really interested in and labels are interested in. But like, I like listening to an album. I like listening to a well-structured album. I like listening to an album where it doesn't sound like they just put a bunch of bullshit on the back half of it because they figured no one would get there anyway. I like listen. If I'm going to sit down and listen to your album, like, I want beginning, middle, and end. I want you to take me on a ride, like I want it. But that being said,
you know how unique you are, because I'm finding that to be so rare. Like,
it's not a thing anymore.
I was like fucking doing the dishes with my fucking partner the other day, and like I'm like, oh my God, fucking Simple Plan. This was like one of the first albums I listened to all the way through. And she's like, I don't think I've ever done that. People do that. I'm like, why do you think they exist? Like, what do you mean people
the
do
patience that it takes. And what people don't understand too, it's kind of crazy, but so many people don't actually listen to albums all the way through. And just because they get bored. And again, that's why I kind of like the idea of crafting an album where it's like, you're not going to get bored. Like, every new song's going to be something that you won't expect. And I get it. That sometimes I listen to albums where I'm like, yeah, I am kind of bored. Like 4 songs in, I'm like, that's enough. That's enough of that. But if I really like the artist, and if it's a band or an artist that I really care about, and I really care about their work and their discography, I will always listen to the album all the way through. And if it's a band that I just discover through like Spotify Discover Weekly or something, and I really like one of their songs, I'll be like, let me try this album out that this song is from.
That's so fun.
And see how it is.
Because it's like rolling the dice. So like you hear their single or whatever, and you're like, okay, can you follow this up?
I just think it's like when people say that they don't listen to albums, I'm like, that's like if you saw like a scene from a movie on YouTube that you had never seen the movie before, and you watched like a scene from a movie and you were like, damn, that's a really good scene. And then you were like, I have no interest in watching the movie. It's like, you don't want to go watch the movie that the scene is from? Like, it's one scene in a 2-hour-long movie. You should go watch the movie. You should watch the whole thing.
Mr. Your pal Austin, are you not on TikTok? That is
I know,
all
yeah.
TikTok.
I know, that's what I'm doing.
I'm waiting for my friend to fucking come out of the bathroom, and I'm like watching fucking some scene in like some 80s movie, and it doesn't tell you anywhere. Yeah. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's a great dad in this fucking clip or whatever. My friend comes out, I was like, what are you watching? And we both start watching. I'm like, dude, I have no fucking idea what this movie is.
I don't know. I have no idea what this is.
There was like 3 comments, and none of it, they were like, oh, great scene. It was like, what? Like, I can't believe that, like, it's so prevalent. I see it, like, every fucking day when I open that stupid app.
But my point about accessibility and stuff for music is, like, yeah, I like listening to albums, but also, like, a lot of times these days, I will just put on my Spotify Discover Weekly playlist and just go, like, and they've got me pegged. Like, I'll just be like, what do you guys got for me? And there's just a never-ending stream of just new music from artists that I've never heard of before, from all over the world, who are constantly blowing me away. Who just like every week I put on just new songs from people I've never heard of before, and I'm just like, this is a great song. Yeah. This is a really great song. And it's just like, it's kind of insane how much there is. It's kind of...
Okay, you just opened up a question, because like we kind of come from a time where it was like, there was like this thing where it was like you wanted to know about all the music, right? You had to like get every CD that people were listening to. Like, you had to know what was going on. Like, even if you fucking hated it, you had to like know about it so you could hate it better. Like,
you can't do that anymore. It's impossible.
And that's what I feel like that's like a residue feeling. And then like you see this like river, this endless bountiful river of new music. And you're just like, there's no way I could ever.
I think that to be like a music snob, I think to be like, for like, if I were to guess what teenagers and people in their 20s who are like music snobs are talking about when they're like getting together and they're being music dorks, I would say that for the most part, pop music has won. Like, it has won, and I'm not against it. Like, I thought Harry Styles' record last year was really good, and like I like pop music, but I would just say that
I respect it as like this amazing thing. I'm like, wow, that like, look how like that's so well done, and I'm like, not for me. But it's very well done.
Well, and I would say that like that's who people talk about now, and like, and everyone knows all of the work by all of the famous artists, the people who are really popular, and those are artists that I actually don't. A lot of them I don't know, so people will be like, "What? You don't know Kimber Dingrage?" And I'm like, "Kim who?" And they're like, "Kimber Dingrage. She collaborated with Leo Teamby," and I'm like, Leo Teamby and Little Skunk. They're like, oh, come on, you know Little Skunk. And I'm like, no, I don't. But like, so I'm old, and I like and I'm one of those people now that's like, the bands that I know, all of their work are the bands that I liked when I was in high school and in my 20s. Unfortunately, that's where I'm at. But I listen to new music every week, and I find new artists and new bands every week that I really like. But they're bands that, like, if I tell anyone, like, hey, have you heard this song by this band? Everyone else is like, no, I have no idea what that is.
I've stopped doing that. I'm
So
just
it's
like,
like-
hey, you got to check this out. Like,
Yeah.
I just bypass that. I'm just like, do you want to hear this crazy song? Or
Yeah.
like, because there's no fucking way. And especially like, I come from a field of like even more niche stuff. I'm like, oh, dude, you heard the new 18 Karat Affair single? Oh, it's the best vaporwave shit I heard this year. It's just this like the most obscure fucking music. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
this guy fucking slaps. It's 17 minutes long. You haven't heard the new Mindspring Memories album? And these are all real acts and they're fucking phenomenal. But like that's what I'm saying. It's so hard to like you'll have that like one friend that will be like, this is exactly what I was looking for. But like 99% of everyone else is just like, don't even fucking mention these acts to me anymore. Cause it's just so jargon for me. Like when you're in the electronic music sphere or like,
Is that what you do? Do you make electronic music?
I make all styles of music.
Yeah.
So like the Forest Kids Collective is basically an umbrella name for the like A to Z aliases I have that are each a different style. So
Great.
like A is pop music, B is like Western, C is electronic ambient, and so on.
Love it. Love it.
And so like I lost my train of thought with that. But shit.
Sorry, I interrupted you. You were what did I say? What did I ask you? I said, do you make electronic music? You were saying when you're in the electronic music sphere.
Oh yeah. It's really fun to call people by like what I like to call like their superhero names.
Oh,
It's like,
sure.
oh, like dude, I was talking to Desert Sand, Feels Warm at Night the other day. He's such a cool dude.
Yeah.
Me and Vivi Vulture are gonna make this album. I just feel like that's just so fun to me, and like
Yeah.
that's kind of half the reason I got into this shit, man. Is just like the whole aliases is so fun to be like this maskless character. But
How
then,
are we doing, by the way? Is this what you normally talk about on your podcast? Are we talking about what you normally talk about? Is this like a good
That's
podcast
fun.
episode?
Oh, this is an A1 podcast episode
All
because
right,
we're
great.
both talking back and forth.
Good.
I've had some people where it's like,
You're like,
Talk
say
back.
something.
yeah, it's like, and then.
Yeah.
But no,
Good.
you're a great conversationalist. This is fucking awesome. But I'm just kind of like chugging along to be like, I wanted to be this faceless entity. I wanted to be like the Aphex Twin of my
Sure.
time or whatever. You know, of course,
Yeah,
every
Daft Punk.
motherfucker,
Yeah.
every motherfucker with the synth wants to.
Uh-huh.
And as I, get into the real world of the internet, I realize that's never gonna happen, buddy. Like unless like it's some miracle happens, or you really know marketing, or like you know how to like promote yourself in that faceless way. You kind of got to get the fuck out there, especially if you're doing something as like vast and complicated as I am, to where like you're like, what do you do? And I had to stop and lose my train of thought to discuss it. Like, so it's I've realized like this past 2 years or so where like I'm making these TikTok videos where it's like my face on it and I'm talking about my albums or like my shit like that, and it's like that transformation I never thought I would go into, like kind of how you started as just like a whatever, and now it's like this whole thing with you, and like you have this, it's watching your videos, it's kind of like a confusing relationship. I mean, obviously no one likes TikTok. And it's
Sure.
like the creators, like it fucks them, just like how YouTube fucks everyone.
Mhm.
But like YouTube, not as bad, especially if
No.
you have long content.
Yeah.
But recently, apparently, they did make a change. Like Meat Canyon did a whole video on how like
it's
just
still
fucking around.
hard to break in on YouTube. You still got to get lucky. But like
Yeah.
once you're in, it's a great place to be. And I've been trying to get in at YouTube for a couple of years now, like posting pretty consistently, lots of different kinds of videos, and I just haven't gotten that like one like juicy hit that can like get me in.
Yeah.
And so it can still be hard to get in, but but the people who are in there, that's the place to be, I think. But anyway, what were you gonna say? You were saying watching the videos, it's a confusing relationship.
Yeah, like where do you sit now with all of that? Because it very much seems like TikTok sucks terribly, and like all those like interaction videos you've had are super interesting.
Yeah, where I'm talking to like the TikTok like people.
Yeah, where you're talking to the TikTok guy.
Yeah,
those are fucking funny. But like, I don't know, like so like what's basically just like where are you sitting on it now? Like, because you're still posting there. Do you think you'll ever stop posting there?
Well, it's just they've got me by the balls and they know it, and they've got me cornered and they know it, and it's really tough because I keep trying to make peace with it and just be like, it is what it is, and I just need to like do what I can do and let the chips fall where they may, and acknowledge that I've been very lucky, and acknowledge that like I was never owed an audience or a platform to begin with, and I got lucky if all I get is like these last few years, and then it all goes up in a puff of smoke, and they decide to take my account away, and I'm ground into dust, like then that's what happens, I guess. But and I try to just be like, yeah, whatever. But it's also like it's just hard to. Yeah, because like I got lucky, and I do believe that the algorithm for the most part is it's a slot machine. It's designed to make people feel like there's some kind of, maybe there's a pattern that I can recognize here that I can game, and if I play it long enough, I'll start to recognize the patterns, and I'll start to figure out how to and then every once in a while the slot machine gives me a win that makes me feel like no, I'm winning here. Okay, I was down, but now I'm back up here, you know. But that's how I genuinely think that's how it's designed. But the one
it's so
thing,
confusing to me. My biggest video is a poop video.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no way to predict what's going to go big and what's going to tank. It is all random as far as I can tell. Of 3 years of doing this full time, it's all very random. But the one thing that I can guarantee in my content, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or Twitter even, the one thing I can guarantee will not do well, and I don't understand it, and it's very hard for me to just like let go and be zen about, is if I ever try to tell my audience about my music or my podcast. If I try to tell people about stuff that I do outside of video content creation that I'm excited about and proud of, they put it right in the toilet. And it 100% of the time, and it's such a big contrast where it'll be like my average views on TikTok, and the reason why I can't stop posting on TikTok is like there is no other platform where every video I post gets at least 50 to 300,000 views. Like TikTok, every video I post gets at least between 50 and 300,000 views. Those are the regular videos, and then some of them pop off and get 2, 3, 4, 5 million, you know. But like regular, I rarely get under 50,000 views on just like a regular video. But
like
if I say
video.
Yeah, like a content video of just me talking about whatever, it can be literally about anything. But at the
Even
second
the
that
TikTok like back and forth video.
Oh yeah, those do great. They have no problem pushing those on my TikTok, and I'm like,
but
so people
sometimes
can.
you do have your music shit in the background.
And they
Does
like
that
to sort
ever
of
work?
Yeah, kind of, but they like to sort of gaslight me like that, because then they'll let the video where I'm complaining about the algorithm fucking me over, they'll let that be seen by a lot of people, and then people will be like, "What are you complaining about? Like this video's doing."
Did you make a video doing that as
totally.
well?
Yeah, where it's like where they're like they'll do that, and it's hard not to feel like it's personal. And every creator that I talk to who does this full time feels the same way. They feel like they're being personally attacked. I'll have creators that are that have layers of marginalization on their identity that will come to me and be like, "Why is TikTok silencing like black women?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm not saying that they're not doing that. I'm just saying that like I'm on top of the privilege totem pole, and I get the privilege pyramid, whatever. Maybe totem pole is a problematic phrase, but I sit atop the privilege game. I'm a straight white cisgender man, and my videos get smacked by the algorithm all the time. Like, and so I'm like, I get dinged with community guidelines violations all the time that I didn't actually commit, and my account is constantly under threat of being taken away. I get messages from TikTok like once a month where they're like, if you do that one more time, we're taking your account away. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do the thing you're saying I did. So I continue posting there because my next biggest platform is Instagram, and I have just under 60,000 followers there. So it's a drop off of 1.2 million followers and videos that regularly get millions of views to 60,000 followers, where my average views on Instagram is like 10 to 20,000 per video, which isn't terrible, but it's just like that. It's a very steep drop off in engagement and views, and
that's crazy.
But it's still frustrating as a musician and as a person who I'm very proud of my podcast, and I think that like I put a lot of work into it, and I've been doing it for 4 years, and my music, that the second I talk about those things, it doesn't feel random. It feels personal, that they know to target those videos. I've never had one of those videos squeak through or somehow like do well in the algorithm. They always, and they do so, sorry, I was about to say this. So like the average is like 50 to 300,000 views. When I make one of those videos, it's like 3,000. So it drops from like 50 to 100,000 to 3,000. And that's 3,000 views out of 1.2 million people following the account. It's like they didn't show it to anyone. It's almost like the video got 0 views. Like it's essentially 0% of the audience. And they're just, it feels like they're looking at me saying like, what are you going to fucking do about it? Like, fuck you. Like, what are you going to do? You're just going to post another video, aren't you? You're just going to be on here tomorrow posting another video. And I am. And they
will come back.
Yeah. And they know I will. So it's a complicated relationship, because blowing up on TikTok has, for the last 3 years, absolutely changed my life. It's made it possible for this to be my job full time. It's made it possible for me to make more money than I've ever made doing anything else in my life. And it's given me relationships and contacts and introduced me to people that I never would have been able to meet otherwise. I wouldn't be on this podcast right now if it weren't for TikTok. It's changed my life. So there's that. But on the other side of it, there's this weird, nefarious, like antagonistic thing that all creators feel, so many creators who work on their field, where it just feels like the people who are running the platform like don't like you and are just sort of like, no, we're just gonna mess with you just to like watch you squirm, and you're like, what are you guys doing? What? And you're like, is this the Chinese thing? Are they trying to like,
well, I was about to say, like, they have like the most fucking privacy shit. Like,
is it like a psyop? Like, are they trying to like fuck with us? Like, I don't know.
I think, like, I try not to buy into any of the stupid fucking conspiracy theories. Totally. But I always like to just be like, that's kind of cute. Like, the whole idea of that, like, TikTok and AI and like shit like this is gonna like get taken away and then like regulated and then like charged or whatever. It's just like so plausible every time I hear how fucking evil these fucking platforms can be. It's ridiculous.
Well, and there's no rhyme or there's no transparency. There's no, like, no one can just come out and say how it works or say like, oh, here's why that happens. Like Instagram has Instagram bonuses for
I tried getting on that shit. It's too much work. Fuck that.
Yeah, and Instagram bonuses are so interesting, and I've talked to so many people about this lately, because my videos, like I said, get an average of like 10 to 20,000 plays, and I post like 30 videos a month, because I post a video almost every single day. And I average on Instagram bonuses, I get like $150 to $200 a month. And it's like, it's not a lot of money, but it's like, whatever, every little bit helps,
For like that amount of engagement for a video, that's not a lot. That's so much work.
But the wild thing is like last week or a week ago or something, I had a video go viral on Instagram and it got over 1 million views. and the bonuses didn't change. It didn't change, and they just demonetized the video. They were like, we're going to demonetize that video. They made like a copyright claim on it, and I was like, and I've talked to so many other creators who have said the exact same thing. They're like, yeah, like I get a pretty consistent amount from bonuses unless I have a video go viral. That video instantly gets demonetized and Instagram shuts it down, and they come up with some reason as to why they have to shut it down. And they're like, so they never actually want to pay out more than like what your regular allotment is. But also that regular allotment doesn't seem, there's no like actual metric to like this many views equals this many dollars. Like there's nobody actually knows how it works. It all seems very random, and there doesn't seem to be like a continuous logic to it, but they do seem to be like intentionally
not paying out.
Yeah, not having to pay out on better performing videos. And, you know, that's why I say YouTube's probably the best platform, because YouTube figured out somewhere along the line, being sort of the OG video platform, they figured out somewhere along the line that, like, they were not going to survive all of the different platforms that were coming up to compete with them. Vine, Snapchat, Instagram, and now TikTok. They were not going to survive if they did not prioritize taking care of their creators. If they did not make it a priority to make sure that creators felt heard and had a channel to them and could talk with them when they had a problem and were getting paid, good rates. But that's also like,
I don't know. I've heard horror stories from YouTube.
Totally.
I mean, just go back to 10 years ago when there was like dozens of amazing animators and creators on YouTube, like making a fucking living off YouTube, and then overnight they changed it from views to minutes watched.
Right.
Overnight gaming channels became popular, and
right.
It was just like those people and then had to go get a new job.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it's shit like that is frustrating. Like, yes, YouTube is like, God, a pretty OG, and I watch it every fucking day.
Yeah.
But like, it's just like that quick change stuff is like shicey and like it's like, come on, like give them a month notice or something, like anything.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. They're just, and I get it. It's like, there's a lot of us, like they're dealing with a lot of people. So I get from a certain angle, I'm like, I get that there's a billion active TikTok users, and there's at least 300,000 TikTok users who are like doing it full time, who are like doing it as their job. Yeah. And you got that many people sending you messages every day saying, hey, what the fuck's going on with my account? I get that, like, there's no workforce in the world big enough at any company to handle that amount of volume.
Well, when you put it that way,
but like I said, there are certain things that make it feel specifically personal and targeted in a way where you're like, hey, you don't need to like intentionally fuck with me. So much of the time I just wish that the algorithms on these platforms would just like leave me alone. Just like, hey, don't do anything. Now that I have an audience here, and just like
just show it to the audience.
Yeah, like just let organic engagement happen the way that it happens, and don't interfere. Don't get involved in any way. Yeah. And when I feel them putting their thumb on the scale, it's always very frustrating. We're running out of time again. What do you want to do? You want to do one more, or do you want to call it?
It's a pretty fucking long episode. I think we could wrap it up in the 5.
Yeah.
But basically that's what I was saying. Like, that whole, just a quick wrap up that whole thing. The When I Was Cool video is nothing. And like when I first saw it, I think it was like when you first dropped it, and I was like, oh my God, like this is like some Bo Burnham motherfucking shit. He's gonna blow the fuck up from this. Like, this is really gonna explode.
I'm so proud of that video. I think it's a great video.
It's 10 out of 10, dude. Like, seriously, like that made me want to be like, okay, I kind of really want to talk to this guy. Great fucking shit. And like, that's a goddamn shame. And
I even have that video pinned at the top of my Instagram account. So anyone who goes to my Instagram account, it's right there, and it still doesn't have that many views. And I like it. It's wild. The stuff that I'm the most proud of is always the stuff with the least amount of engagement, and but that's how it goes,
Dude, that's how it be. Like, I got an album that I've like spent years on, and I'm like about to buy the merch for it, and like the prints and the dubs and all the stuff, and I'm just like, this ain't gonna sell. Like I just know it's gonna fucking flop.
You're like, I like
But-
it too much. I'm too proud of it.
That's what I'm saying. But like I make a Backrooms album overnight, and that's like my biggest YouTube fucking video. I'm like, of course, as soon as I do a stupid trend, here we go. It's like, all right.
Yeah, the stupid song that I did, Congratulations. It's like, congratulations, that was one of the stupidest things that.
Yeah.
So that's like my most viewed and used sound of anything I've ever made. It's got like over 50 million views across different platforms, people who have used it on different, it's just like it went everywhere. And people always were like, the production on that song, like the production. And I'm like, you motherfuckers. Literally I was at my parents' house and I didn't have any of my gear with me. And I recorded the vocals into a headphones microphone and put it through like a telephone voice filter. And then I did the keys really, really quickly on my keypad on my laptop, and I wrote that song and put the whole thing together in maybe an hour. And everyone's like, the production. And I'm like, shut up. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Whatever then. Whatever. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing then. I really don't. And
Bedroom pop for life.
yeah, and there's no way I would be able to intentionally recreate that, because it just was like, yeah. And if I tried to, it probably wouldn't sound the same, or it would, so.
I have this ambient album that I was sick and drunk and very high for, and it's like my favorite ambient album I ever did. But like every time I listen to it, I'm like, I'm never gonna be in that state of mind, literally ever again. Like there's literally me like, but it like works.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Ugh.
Yeah.
All right, Austin, this was a fucking amazing talk. Plug some shit and make it a good fucking bookend.
Anybody who's listening, you can listen to my music on Spotify or Apple Music by looking up Austin Archer. If you want to get real deep in there, you can listen to Us Thieves or Boss TV or Natural History. Those are 3 musical projects that I have that are on Spotify or Apple Music. Or you could go to austinarchermusic.bandcamp.com to get some weird EPs and B-sides and rarities and stuff like that. My podcast is called People Pleaser with Austin Archer. That's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube. You can find that. Those are things that like people who know me on the internet don't know about. If this is the first time you're hearing about me on the internet too, you can be like, what's the deal with this guy? I'm your pal Austin on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and YouTube. Your pal _Austin if you want to see what that's all about. That's all the stuff.
Dude, fuck yeah. And again, like this was an absolute pleasure having a chat with you. Like, damn. You got any openings on your podcast? I'd love to chat more.
Come on over. Yeah. So we'll set up a time. I've got the next couple weeks are booked out, but we'll set up a time and I'll have you over.
Oh, dude, beautiful.
So, yeah. Where do you live, by the way?
Oh, I'm in Philly.
Oh, you're in Philly. You said that. Philly earlier. You said that. All right. Well, okay. We'll get you on Zoom and we'll do it.
Dude, fuck yeah. This was a pleasure, man. Have a great rest of your night, and I'll hit you up for the MP3 or whatever.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Right on.